You're watching TVC News at 10. We're staying in Abuja, where months after the Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities and the Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities presented their demands, the federal government now says it's sorry for neglecting the requests for months. The apologies coming from the Federal Ministry of Education. At a conciliatory meeting, the Minister of Labour and Employment says a white paper on university needs assessment will be released on the 17th of May. TVC News' Joke Adisa reports.
The non-academic unions and the universities declared a 2-week warning strike on the 27th of March. The industrial action was extended by 1 month as a result of the inability of the authorities to commence negotiations with the striking workers. Now, the industrial action has entered its 2nd month, and the Minister of Labour and Employment, as the nation's chief conciliator, is brokering a truce. He attributes the strike to the absence of communication between the parent ministry and the university staff.
Session panels have been done in all places. The White Paper Committee has finished. They have drawn their report, and by May 17th, the White Paper will be released.
The Federal Ministry of Education apologizes for the stalemate between it and the workers since the strike began and promises to turn a new leaf.
Adamu, who had specifically asked me to come and plead for your forgiveness. That is as if your employer, Federal Ministry of Education, has abandoned you. Issues contrived to make it look that way. That is not the picture.
For the union leaders, beyond apology is the need to accede to all the demands of the unions in the interest of students, parents, and the nation's education sector.
The apology is not a problem to us. Our problem is that the ministry should do exactly what is expected of them.
Being denied by Ministry of Education openly, and I never knew that we have any labor issue or any industrial issue with them, and they are not our employer. So I'm happy that he's here to apologize today, and I hope this apology is not political.
Among the demands of the unions are implementation of the renegotiated 2009 agreement, payment of earned allowances, usurpation of non-academic career positions by vice-chancellors, inclusion of university staff school into the university community, non-payment of minimum wage arrears, and funding for state universities. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
Meanwhile, it's day 2 of the protest embarked on by students of the University of Benin over the industrial action by ASU. The protesting students say the only way to end the incessant strike is for the federal government to prioritize the education sector. They blocked major roads in protest for several hours, displaying their cooking and football dexterity on the road, as well as received lectures. They've also called on the federal government to consider the plight of students by urgently meeting the demand of the union to enable them return to school.
As I'm talking to you now, JAM is starting the exam by 6. They are going to remit money to federal government. Where are all those money going to? Our institution is dilapidating. We don't have a well-equipped laboratory, nothing. So I want to appeal to the federal government, any coming problem, anything you want to do, invest in educational sector. And you can see the grievances. This my director of welfare is in 400 level, 500 level, 500 7 years. Since 7 years, 500 level. Yes. With him graduates.
While I was at home, election is coming again. We want to go back to our classroom. We are not hoodlums. We are not tats. We are not talks. We are not here to cause chaos. All we want is to go back to school. All we want is to go back to our classroom. That's what we want. And we are calling on all relevant authorities, the Union Labour Congress and all other unions, to support us in the struggle to make sure that Nigerian students in public university go back to school.
We will keep agitating till our voices are heard. It is so sad that without agitation, these people will not listen to us. A governor of a state named withheld posted the other day congratulating his child graduating from a school abroad in the UK. We all saw it from our houses, and we are pained. And these schools that these people attend abroad are public universities. But our public universities here are trash. So we are only crying, as usual, for our voices to be heard. And if you testify yesterday, the number was not up to this. Tomorrow, it will be worse. So let them answer us and answer us.
In other news, the Ondo state government isn't happy with the rise in gender-based violence, growing cases of sexual assault and harassment in higher institutions of learning. And to put an end to this, the government has signed a memorandum of understanding with Gender Mobile Initiative in Akure.
Sexual harassment has eaten deep into Nigeria's university community. In a survey conducted by the World Bank Women Group, 70% of female graduates from Nigerian universities have been sexually harassed, and these numbers keep rising every year. The Ondo State government is determined to address these issues through a partnership with various organizations. Here, the state government, through the Office of the State Governor on Gender, entered into a partnership with the group Gender Mobile Initiative.
What this also means is that whatever is going
the Executive Director of Gender Mobile Initiative, Omoumi Oborotimi, said campus safety policy has been adopted in universities across the country. Oborotimi said the partnership will allow the state government to adopt its model to address sexual violence.
Sexual harassment is, on the rise, and it's really important that we rise to the occasion to address these issues. In the last 4 years, Gender Mobile has worked with institutions of higher learning essentially to address sexual harassment, adopting a tripartite approach of policy design, community-led bystander intervention, and also creative integration of technology.
Earlier, the special advisor to the state governor on gender, Olamide Falana, said the project was born out of the need to have active collaboration with civil society organizations.
Because we want the very best for our state, and I'm excited that this day has actually come for us to commence activities in furtherance of our state response towards ending gender-based violence in Ondo State.
Other stakeholders stress the need for governments to partner non-governmental organizations to eradicate gender-based violence.
The institution is just a microcosm of what is happening all over. And the films we watch, and unfortunately, even what we see on the social media. So it goes beyond targeting the institution. It's also important for us to ensure that mosques, churches,
we should create more awareness, telling people, telling the women, telling the men what they are supposed to do and what they are not supposed to do. It's not that they don't know it.
Because believe that partnership like this will go a long way in tackling sexual harassment in tertiary institutions across Ondo State. Aida Jimora, your TVC News, Akure.
Meanwhile, the family and friends of late OCHANYA have appealed to the BENUE state government to challenge the court verdict freeing the main suspect involved in a rape and death. On April 28, Makurdi High Court in Benue State discharged and acquitted Andrew Obuja of all 4 charges. But the family and friends of the victim are now urging Governor Samuel Ortom to help upturn the Makurdi High Court decision by directing the State's Director of Public Prosecution to quickly file a notice of appeal and transmit the record of proceedings to the Court of Appeal for Adjudication. Celestina Area reports.
It is now over 4 years since the death of Ifeanyi Okowa, and justice can be said to have been partially served on the accused. Okowa was said to have been sexually molested by her uncle, Andrew Obuja, and his son, Victor Obuja. Mr. Obuja was arrested and remanded by the Makurdi Magistrate Court, while Mrs. Obuja was apprehended by NAPTIP on charges of negligence and conspiracy. The son, on the other hand, still remains at large. Mr. Obuja, a senior lecturer at Benue State Polytechnic, was arraigned at Benue State High Court in Makurdi on 4 charges of rape and murder. The contention here is the judgment delivered by the Federal High Court in Makurdi and the State High Court in Makurdi. The Federal High Court in Makurdi convicted Mrs. Obuja for negligence of duty and also trying to frustrate the investigation of NAPTIP. She was sentenced to 5 months imprisonment. But the State High Court in Makurdi discharged and acquitted Mr. Obuja on the ground that the prosecution failed to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt.
Everyone connected in the commission, in perpetrating this crime, is held to account. If we don't do that, last Thursday will continue to haunt us as a nation. It will continue to stand as a dark day in the campaign against sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria. We must not allow that to happen.
We want to say that some of the gaps in the state prosecution's work, which are not enough for the judge to take advantage in order to throw a case out, because global best practices is that once victims or survivors have had the courage to speak about their abuse, you do everything possible so long as you have corroborative evidence to ensure that justice is delivered in favor of the victim.
But at least we trust that the judiciary will be able to deliver justice. And so we are back to ask that the judiciary please continue to help us.
OCHANYA died few weeks after battling vesico-vaginal fistula and other health challenges on 17th of October 2018. Until her death, she was a JSS2 student at the Federal Government College, Boko in Benue State. Celestina Area, TVC News, Abuja.
So security matters now. It's believed that without adequate security of lives and property, economic development in any country will remain a mirage. This view was highlighted at an interactive session put together by the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations in Lagos. Senior correspondent Ifeanyi was there.
For a state with over 20 million people, tackling crime and insecurity could be challenging for security operatives. Confronting this challenge often brings various stakeholders together. Such is this meeting organized by the Lagos State chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations. The Commissioner of Police says synergy is key to effective policing. According to him, everyone must contribute by giving useful information.
There's no law and order there. Development or growth cannot thrive. We are not magicians. We work on information, we work on intelligence. And how do we get intelligence and information from the public? There must be a kind of symbiotic relationship that we must work in synergy. The information so received is synthesized, processed, and it becomes actionable intelligence that we can work with to achieve our goal.
He's also bothered by how the Nigerian police are projected to children by their parents.
Oftentimes, you see parents, guardians, and teachers using my threats. If you don't eat your food, I will call police for you. All these remarks are negative to the psyche of our growing child, who over time builds a negative perception about the police. If you don't eat your food, I'll call police for you. We say this without knowing the import of the meaning. So we have to please reorientate our children towards the perception they have about the police.
The chapter is satisfied with the interface between the two, describing it as fruitful.
He has shed more light on what the police are doing, and as relationship builders also, we are going to go through what is done, is said to us, and then place it on different platforms, worked on it to see the way forward. We talked about stakeholders, and today he has even elaborated more on the different stakeholders that is needed. Crime should come to a minimum.
The Commissioner of Police promised to address all security concerns raised by members of the Institute. Ivy Kano, TVC News, Lagos.
Coming up tonight on the news, politicians complain about high cost of candidates' nomination forms. We have that story and more after this break. Thanks for staying with us. 626 women in Benue State who were abandoned by their families due to a vesico-vaginal fistula have received free repair surgeries from a UNFPA project funded by the Korea International Cooperation Agency. The 4-year project, which just ended, also provided skills for the women and girls. The First Lady of Benue State wants the project sustained. Leo Thomas reports.
Women and girls have been the worst affected by the over a decade insurgency in the Northeast. Their condition is worsened by the series of attacks on health facilities, which has further taken a toll on their access to health. The gap is what the UNFPA Quaker project aimed to bridge. Besides repair surgeries for women and girls affected by VVF, the project also built a 40-bed space inside the state specialist hospital and trained 37 surgeons and nurses on surgical skills to conduct fistula repair surgeries effectively. The project also provided 10 mini ambulances as mobile clinics and support for referrals in case of emergencies.
In Nigeria, 150,000 women live with fistula. 13,000 new cases come every year. And at the current pace across the country, we are able to repair 3,000 a year. I think it's obvious that number has gone up. And that is something we can prevent if women have access to two things: child spacing and safe deliveries.
A critical point to also note during discussions at this strategic meeting is the importance of sustainability of interventions as delivered by this project.
If we can get something like this, it's a highly welcome idea so that it can sustain the women, because we have many adolescent mothers, child mothers that we have, be it fistula survivors or GBV survivors in the state. And I think this is one of the things that we can do to improve their life, to give them hope that they can stand anywhere.
Items produced as a result of the skills acquired by the women were also on display at the venue. Though the 4-year phase of this project has ended, but considering the impact it has had on women and girls of BENUE State, hopefully funding will continue and the project will be sustained. Moya Thomas, TVC News, Abuja.
Let's talk politics now. Chairman of the Zenith Labour Party has called out the All Progressives Congress over the high cost of the party's nomination forms. The chairman believes this will discourage young people from vying for various positions since they would not be able to afford such fees imposed by the ruling party.
Unlike what obtains in bigger political parties like the All Progressives Congress, the Zenith Labour Party says its nomination form from various positions are free to all. This is expected to give youths the opportunity to try out their hands in contesting for office, while also championing the Not Too Young to Run Act. It falls such astronomical costs on nomination forms imposed by some political parties and urged President Muhammadu Buhari to intervene.
Mr. President, you should not allow 100 million naira as nomination fee for your party for president. When it was difficult for you to pay 10 million and people paid it for you. Allow the young people, give meaning. Mr. President, give meaning to the Not Too Young to Run bill, which you signed into an act, by reducing it for young people to come and run. That's why here young people, we are not charging them anything. We are not charging women anything. Let them come from anywhere and come and run. And I'm sure if they are backed by young people and women, they'll be elected into the parliament.
But not all people see things the way of the ZLP. There are those who believe that a presidential candidate who hopes to pull millions of votes in a general election should be able to buy a nomination form worth 100 million naira. They say the amount, which is equivalent to $175,000, is quite modest for a serious political party, especially when it's a ruling political party like the APC. The Electoral Act in Section 88 stipulates the maximum expenses for a candidate for any election as follows: presidential candidate, 5 billion naira; governorship candidate, 1 billion naira; senatorial candidate, 100 million naira; House of Representative candidate, 70 million naira; State House of Assembly candidate, 30 million naira. Can it therefore be seen as reasonable if the political parties, particularly the APC, charge a minimum of 10% of the cap on election expenses as a non-refundable fee for nomination forms to show seriousness of candidates? These questions continue to dominate discussions across platforms of communication.
In the meantime, the Independent National Electoral Commission is insisting that the deadlines for the conduct of political parties' primaries ahead of the 2023 election will not be extended beyond 1 month. A statement issued earlier by its National Commissioner and Chairman of Information and Voter Education Committee, Festus Okoye, noted that political parties are expected to follow the timetable and schedule of activities as released by the Commission ahead of the polls. It explains that parties are to conduct their primaries for the nomination of candidates from 4th April to 3rd June 2022. INEC also stated that the nominations for the presidential and National Assembly elections should be submitted to it between 10th to 17th June, while that of the governorship and state houses of assembly are expected between 1st and 15th July. Governor Ifeanyi Okowa of Delta State, who is also the chairman, South-South Governors Forum, says is not let to vie for the presidency, despite pressure from several quarters for him to do so. The governor, who disclosed this during his quarterly media interaction with journalists in Asaba, also says he has not endorsed any aspirant ahead of the PDP governorship primaries later this month. Ikenamechi reports.
The quarterly session with journalists afforded the governor an opportunity to give his scorecard on governance of the oil-rich state. He promised he will stay focused despite politics ahead of the 2023 governorship election.
That we have promised to stay the course of governance, and all that we have promised the people, we have continued to work diligently to the best of our ability and committed to ensure that we succeed. Our entrepreneurship programs are ongoing. Our construction jobs have continued to stay the course, so we have had challenges as a government.
But during the interaction, the obvious and the interest of most journalists here is politics and his succession plan.
But the fact is that I have not endorsed any aspirant, and we will, by the special grace of God, work towards having a free and fair primary. I have not been led to run for the presidency of Nigeria. There were lots of pressures from all parts of the country, but somehow I did not think that I was fully prepared to run that race. I always like to undertake a contest that I know I'm fully prepared for. It takes a lot.
Governor Okowa also addressed the 150 billion naira bridge finance, especially with loss of misinformation trailing the move.
It's not a loan where I'm taking a loan and I'm waiting on the normal allocations to be able to pay back the loan. It's money that is owed us already that is going to come on a quarterly basis. And when the money has value, I'd rather spend that money when that money has value. And every single project that is being taken, that is going to be involved in that 150 billion, and not only a single project, we also are addressing the pension issues.
Governor Okowa gave a little information about politicking, which is the order of the day, but dwelt much on the governance of the state and how he hopes to finish stronger in 2023. Ikenna Amechi, TVC News, Asaba.
Elsewhere, the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, has described the Lekki Deep Seaport as a game-changer in the maritime sector. The minister made the remarks in Lekki during a media tour of the facility. We have details in this report, and we'll return with business news afterwards.
The investment in the seaport is worth $1.53 billion on fixed assets and $800 million on construction, and that the aggregate impact has been put at $361 billion in 45 years, which will be over 200 times the cost of building it. In addition, it will create over 100,000 jobs and bring revenues totaling $201 billion to state and federal government through taxes, royalties, and duties. He disclosed that the direct and induced business revenue impact is estimated at $158 billion, in addition to a qualitative impact on manufacturing, trade, and commercial services sector. The minister said Nigeria aims to utilize the Lekki deep sea port to regain the maritime business that was lost to ports in Togo, Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, stressing that it is also a big boost to Nigeria in its quest to take advantage of the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement.
I also don't have the list of those agreements. So, but I think it's a very new question, and we'll take this up to the Minister of Transportation.
Managing Director of the Lekki Deep Sea Port said the project, which had reached 89% completion, will commence operations before the end of this year, and that in the next 7 years, the construction of the second phase of the port will start.
And the third road is the road connecting the port with Lekki Junction, as far as we know. So the Nigerian government has some current cooperation with the Dangote group, and that's what the upgrade is also has already been started. They are mobilizing the related resources, and as per their plan, that hopefully that road could be completed. I guess next year. Yeah.
The Lekki Port Investment Holding Incorporation is owned by China Harbour Engineering Company and Tolaram Group with 75% share, Lagos State Government 20%, and the Nigerian Port Authority hold 5%.
In business news, the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation says it has embarked on collaboration and cooperation with other deposit insurance agencies globally to address the challenges facing the financial industry. NDIC's Managing Director Chief Executive, Mr. Bello Hassan, made this known at a retreat put together by the corporation for members of the House of Representatives Committee on Insurance and Actuarial Matters in Lagos, with theme Deposit Insurance in Nigeria, Re-strategizing for Tomorrow. Blessed Omonose reports.
One of the fundamental factors that has contributed to the Nigerian's economic growth is the conscious strategy to develop the financial sector. Despite the challenges faced by the sector in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, the banking industry, with the support of the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, has remained resilient, stable, and profitable. At this meeting put together by the management of the NDIC for members of the House of Representatives on insurance and actuarial matters, the need for strong collaboration with relevant stakeholders in addressing issues confronting the financial space took precedence.
The financial system is very dynamic. We are facing a number of challenges. COVID-19 is one of them. So which means we as insurance, as insurer, we must continuously re-strategize on how to deliver on our public policy objectives and also deliver on our key mandates, which is bank supervision, deposit guarantee, and bank resolution.
We have issues with collecting debts, so we would like to look at laws, legal framework that would enhance our capacity to collect debt.
The chairman, House of Representative Committee on Insurance and Actuarial Matters, Honorable Darlington Nwokocha, bears his mind on the efforts made by the lawmakers to amending the NDIC Act.
You know that the banking, both NDIC, all of them are all products of law. And at the end of the day, what we're doing in this engagement is making sure we try and make laws that will help the NDIC boost the confidence of the people, that people can now deposit and be sure that their monies are safe. And once they don't have that confidence, you cannot achieve a very stable economy, because the banking sector is the stabilizer of the economy when it comes to fund and how it is well spread.
What we have come to do today is to look at what we did with NDIC last year. We also looked at their act, which we are amending. We want to see how far have we gone. Are there new things that we need to put in the act? Are there new financial institutions that have come up that they need to control?
Going by the current economic realities globally, an improved synergy between the NDIC and the lawmakers will foster more growth in the nation's financial system. Blessed Omonose, TVC News, Lagos.
But the need for government and its citizens to harness the immense potentials from land-based assets has been highlighted. The Nigerian Institute of Estate Surveyors and Valuers made this point a focus at a rally to commemorate the 2022 Valuation Day in Lagos. TVC News correspondent Ifeanyi Okowa reports.
This year's theme centers on unlocking wealth through valuation. For members of the Nigerian Institute of Estate Surveyors and Valuers, this rally is being deployed to create awareness within government, corporate organizations, and the public on how to optimize real estate investment and development, getting best returns from wasting assets, and understanding real estate location pricing, among other related issues that would reveal how wealth creation is attainable in the real estate market despite prevailing economic challenges.
More people need to embrace valuation. Already, if you, there's hardly any transaction you do with a bank in terms of taking facility that the bank will not ask you for security, collateral security. And 90% of collateral security that are required are actually real estate.
So one of the biggest assets you own is a business or an individual, either your house or your business premises. Effectively, you know how much you paid for it. Do you know how much it is worth over time? Do you know what has happened to it over the period? What a valuer does is bring this perspective into your view each time, letting you know what risk you're facing, what risk this asset is facing, and what risk it is coming upon.
Giving more insight, they explain that valuations are widely used and relied upon in financial and other markets, whether for inclusion in financial statements, for regulatory compliance, or to support secured lending and transactional activity.
Valuation at different times remains important so that you've documented the value at a point in time and each time. So effectively, if you do it this year, by the time you're doing it next year, you will know effectively what has happened to these assets and what decisions you need to make.
Underscoring the importance for more collaboration between the public sector and professional estate surveyors and valuers, they know that it will go a long way in raising funds for government, enhance wealth creation among the citizenry, and also ensure optimal management of real estate assets in Nigeria. Ifeanyi Okowa, TVC News, Lagos.
The cost of powering telecommunication services with diesel has jumped by 233.3% in recent months to 30 billion naira monthly. Well, that's according to analysis and computation of data from Nigerian telecoms operators. The development brings the annual cost of powering telecom services with diesel to 360 billion naira annually. Now, the operators under the aegis of the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria say the cost of diesel, which is required to power network towers, base stations, and offices, rose from 225 naira in January 2022 to more than 750 naira in March 2022. In a letter written to the Nigerian Communications Commission, the association noted that the telecommunications industry has been heavily financially impacted following Nigeria's economic recession in 2020. And of course, the effect of the ongoing Ukraine and Russia crisis. This has resulted to increase in energy costs, which constitutes well over 35% of Alton's members' operating expenses. Both trading companies and investors at the stock market are enjoying rising prices on their investments as booming trades supply incentives. Ifeanyi Okowa reports on markets.
The nation's stock market has maintained bullish pattern of trades, where rising prices on securities have caused great market expansion. First quarter trade results of many quoted companies have given hopes and incentives to investors. Top equities of the day were the banks, manufacturing firms, and energy companies. Business favored Guinness as it gained maximum 10% on price. Nigerian breweries, Fitson Pharmaceuticals, and corn oil also stayed strong on the trading tables. The positive trades drove market index upward by 0.37%, indicating price recovery at the exchange. Companies that dropped prices include Multiverse, FCN Cocoa, Mutual Benefit Assurance, and ONDO. Nearly 500 million units of shares were traded with value in excess of 8 billion naira. Going outside Nigeria, many African markets closed deals in mixed territories. Stock trading was negative in Kenya as the Nairobi Securities Exchange was down by 0.58% after many investors embarked on stock sales. The JSE in South Africa recorded huge trades on investment following investors' interest in bonds and real estate securities. The market in Botswana traded in the flat territory as many fund managers reduced weight on equities risk. Finally, the market in Accra, Ghana, closed with mild price in trade sectors. Ifeanyi Okowa, TVC News, Lagos.
Well, outside our shores, Asian shares tracked Wall Street gains today after U.S. Central Bank raised interest rate by 50 basis points, but sounded a less hawkish tone than some had feared, lifting investors' sentiments and sending the dollar lower. Crude prices, meanwhile, shot up as the European Union spelled out some of the details of its plan to ban the use of Russian oil, heightened concerns about supply. MSCI's broadest index of Asian Pacific shares outside Japan rose 0.83%, although trading was thin with Japanese and Korean markets closed for public holidays. Asian gains followed U.S. rally overnight, in which Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 2.81%. The S&P 500 gained 2.99%, Nasdaq advanced 3.19% features. For the S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100 features, index slipped 0.17% and 0.28% respectively. In Asian afternoon trade, Hong Kong's benchmark Hang Seng Index rose 0.33% today, with tech sector index adding 0.77%. This week, Hong Kong stocks have edged lower, while the offshore Chinese yuan has been volatile, though still stronger than it was last week. Australia's S&P/ASX 200 performed strongly with 0.83% increase. And oil prices on international market extended gains today on supply concerns as the European Union proposal laid out plans for new sanctions against Russia, including an embargo on crude in 6 months, offsetting concerns over weaker Chinese demand. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude recorded a price decline of 0.32% to hit $107.50 per barrel. Brent sells at $110.10, registering a downward price margin of 0.05%. Bonnie Light's performance has bounced back into the green territory with a price surge of 2.60% to sell at $104.60 per barrel. For the OPEC basket, crude oil dealers offer $109.80 with a sharp uptick of 4.24%.